Welcome back to Inside the Z-verse. It's your girl Z, and this is the verse. So today, I'm gonna be doing Am I the A-hole on Reddit. So we're just gonna go through, find a couple of ones that I like. And for those who don't know, I had originally went to school for psychology, dual majored in clinical and child psych. So I like getting into people's heads, see what they're doing, see what's in there. So let's get to it. This one says, am I the a-hole for withholding my wife being pregnant from my mother/family? I can't speak on everyone's relationship. So like, it all depends. I need more context. So it says, I don't have a bad relationship with my family per se, but we really don't talk very often. I admittedly don't try enough myself with my siblings, older sister and younger brother, but I have at least tried to keep something going with my mom. I was sent to boarding school from 11 to 18, then went off to uni and dropped out, moving fully out of my family home from the age of 20. Communication was always sparse, and I think that was a top behavior as I very little contact coming from my parents while I was at boarding school full time with going home every 3 to 4. Anyway, skipping forward, it's my 33rd birthday today. My wife is 15 weeks pregnant, and we're really happy telling all her family, who I have gotten very close to. However, I intentionally sat my mom a challenge that I would only tell her we were expecting when she calls me. This would be her first grandchild, and I know that she'll be very excited. I got a text from her today with no sign of a call or beyond. My wife is now pressing me to, at a minimum, request my mom try and initiate more contact, which I think is probably fair. Mainly, I want to see if general public thinks that my behavior here is a-hole behavior, that I should just start telling my family and not wait for this imaginary goal, or is this a minimum level of contact I should expect if she wants to be involved in my life? Two things aside, I haven't told my siblings or dad/stepdad. The latter are realistical out of the picture, but I will be willing to tell my siblings soon, regardless of my mom calls, if his mom calls. Two, counting up our calls this year, I have called my mom 18 times this year, and she had called me 4 times. The last time being in May, and 2 were callbacks from me calling her first. This is something I have specifically asked her to work on a few times over the years. Okay. So basically, the gist of this whole thing is, from child, when he was sent off to boarding school and uni, he didn't really have a relationship with his siblings or his parents on both ends. So now he's 33. His wife was 15 weeks pregnant. They told her side of the family, right? And he's also gotten closer to that side of the family. He said to himself, he has set a goal that if when she calls me by her own volition, like from her, I'm going to tell her. Fast forward, she has not called him, and he has stated that he has asked her to work on this in the past. And altogether throughout the year, they have called 18 times. What was it again? He said he has called her, 18 times. She has called him 4 times, and 2 of those times were callbacks from when he called. So, what are we thinking? Me, is he the a-hole? I feel like that has to do with a lot, honestly. Because, it says his relationship it's not bad, but it's not good for his family. And then from 11 to 18, he was shipped off to boarding school. Like, y'all don't love y'all kids? Y'all don't want them home? Anyways, And then after that, he went to uni, but then he dropped out. Felt at 20. Felt. Um, and he moved out of his parents' house at 20. Um, Me personally, what I would do. And I'm not telling y'all this is what y'all should do. I'm just saying I'm giving my advice, not my advice, of what I would do in his situation. I don't think I would tell them, well, her, even though, yes, she's the mom, and a lot of the older generation would be like, you have to forgive, forgive, and forget. Cool. I don't got to do jack. I was told all I got to do is stay black and die, and Michael Jackson proved I don't got to stay black. So, okay. But he set this up, and if she hasn't called him, that's her blocking her own blessing. Like, it's her first grandchild, and if he's told her in the past to work on it, and that has been communicated, and vice versa, you would think she would call more or work on it. And yes, I understand life happens, people go through stuff in life, but bro, for me personally, I do not think he's the a-hole. I think the mother has some stuff to work on because he's the one doing all the work in this relationship. You know, a phone is a two-way thing. One person can't always be calling and texting, and the other person can't just sit there and do nothing. So, honestly, I feel like he's right. But I mean, if your wife, it says, you know, he says his wife is now pressuring him to, at minimum, request his mom to try and intimate more contact, which I think is probably fair, which I do think is fair. But he's already done that. So what are we doing? I don't know. Let's see what other people think. Not the a-hole. See, not the a-hole. Nah, no. It says not the a-hole, but since your wife wants you to, likely because she doesn't want to deal with the drama or fallout, maybe just text your mom that you have some news to share, and does she have time for a chat soon? That might prompt her to call and schedule a time to catch up. Also ask yourself this: if something terrible were to happen and you didn't get the chance to tell your mom or your family, would you wish you had reached out? That is a good question, but I don't think we should base that off of what ifs, you know? Like, anything could be a what if, you feel me? So, I mean, yeah, I really don't think he's the a-hole. It's his mother that needs to work on the relationship and the communication. And you would think, as a mother who you've pushed out your womb or gave birth to, that have raised, well, technically she didn't really do the raising, she sent him off to boarding school. Whatever. Either way, you would think there would be more, like she would care more to be in his life. Again, I'm just basing this off of how I was raised and what I was taught and a little bit of psychology. This one says, nah, but call your mom. Your wife has requested it. Basically what I was saying, you know, call your mom because your wife wants your mom to be involved, probably again, to not deal with drama or fallout. But let me finish reading that. It says, nah, but call your mom. Your wife has requested it. And of all the times to set challenges that only you knew about, the pending arrival of your firstborn child just isn't the time. When we set silent challenges, all we are doing is setting ourselves up for conflict down the road. I half agree and half don't agree with this, because I'm one definitely to set a challenge silently, because if you didn't do that on your own and if you never was going to do that at all, I'm sorry. I hope that made sense. But definitely contact her because your wife is wanting that connection, or again, just wanting, you know, for them to know. But I set challenges all the time. Okay, that's that one. There's a bunch of Nas. This one says, I would tell her, but I also would say if she wants to be in your child's life, she needs to show up effort, because you won't put your child through the same. I'm not a fan of ultimatums to get people to show. Oh, this is the person who did the post replying. I am not a fan of ultimatums to get people to show interest or love or other emotions that they clearly don't feel. You cannot demand someone's care for you. You can tell her, but you are unhappy, and that effort she puts in the relationship is required. Why that is the case, love is an action, and when this action is missing, you have to draw conclusions. You cannot use a baby to blackmail someone into showing your care for you. Not wrong, but I think what the other person was trying to say is uh the other person was just trying to say, you don't want the baby to go through what you went through and be like, why isn't grandma? Why is grandma spending all the time with all the other kids and not me? Do I matter? So what he's saying is he just doesn't want the kid to go through what you've been through in a roundup way. But definitely we don't want to do ultimatums unless, like, I don't know. I wouldn't say unless, but I personally don't like ultimatums either, because it's like, if they wanted to, they would. That's literally the motto. If they wanted to, they would. What else do we have? Yeah, everyone is agreeing with me. They saying no. Okay. Ooh, this one is good. This one hits a little too close to home, though. This one says, am I the a-hole for not forgiving my dad for leaving me behind in a city? Clock that T. Anyone else's dad went to go get the milk and never came back? Anyone else's dad went to get the milk and came back sporadically and left to get milk multiple times throughout your childhood and your almost adult life, and then had the nerve to die when you turned 18, a month after you turned 18? Me? Just me? Okay. Anyways, says, English is not my first language, so sorry for mistakes. I recently had a talk with my dad about what he did when I was 13. 13 is crazy. Here is what happened when I was 13. I had recently got my first period and was still new to everything. Unfortunately, my body doesn't like me very much. Felt that. So every period is extremely painful to the point where I throw up multiple times and feel dizzy, almost to the point of fainting. Felt that. This is important information. So me and my dad and my little brother, 8 at the time, were in Italy for a weekend. Okay, money. I'm sorry. I got my periods too that time, but it wasn't that bad yet because the pain only comes a bit later. We were walking in the city, just strolling around. After a while, I felt really nauseous and the pain started to kick in. I asked my dad if we could go back to the place where we were staying at because I was in a lot of pain. He said it wasn't that bad. How? Let's finish. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But how would he know? Is he a girl? Did he go through pain? I didn't think so. Not that bad, and that I should just ignore it. Okay, I'm already pissed right now. Anyways. So we continued walking. I was falling behind, leaning over in pain, asking my dad again and again if we could go home, which he denied. I started crying because it hurt so bad. Oh my gosh, I felt that. I just feel super bad now. Mind you, I was a child that never cried. He just ignored me and continued walking while I was getting slower. After a while, I couldn't walk anymore and sat down, period. But I feel bad. I looked around and realized that my brother and dad were nowhere to be seen, which scared me so much that I started to have a panic attack. I used to have those too. No. I continued walking, trying to find them while I had to sit down every few steps. Hold on. Okay, we're back. Okay. So she sat down every few steps. This is so sad. This lasted for probably half an hour. She was alone in the middle of the city in Italy for half an hour? Sitting down on the ground? Until my sweet little brother came back to get me against our father's wishes. W brother. When I got to the car, he was playing games on his phone, ignoring me. When I got in, he asked me if I was having a tantrum. I couldn't say anything. When we got back home, I laid down on the couch and immediately fell asleep out of exhaustion and pain. Both my stepmother and my dad said I was exaggerating and that it was my fault. Now back to the present. Me and my dad had a talk because I asked him why he did what he did, literally. We wouldn't be good for ages. He said that he thought it was just acting to get out of walking around. To his defense, I was a really annoying child when they took me on walks. Being annoying, be for real, bro. Be so freaking for real. Always complaining, but like I said, I never cried or even acted like I was that sick. See, like, I said that he was cruel for leaving a 13-year-old girl alone in the city while in pain. No dip, Sherlock. And he said that he never left me. Why do they always gaslight us like they didn't do what they did? I hate when parents do that. He only went far away enough so that I couldn't see him. I still find it horrible. He apologized for it, but I couldn't forgive him. Now I feel like I am the a-hole for not forgiving him after what he did. Please tell me if I'm the a-hole for not forgiving him. First of all, we don't need to tell you that he was the a-hole. This whole story is telling me that he was the a-hole and that he probably shouldn't have had kids and had a vasectomy. So, I'm sorry. That was crazy. That is your dad I'm talking about. My bad. Let's say. Okay. It says, oh, honey, you're absolutely not the... See? We feel so bad. What your father did was cruel to the point of being abused on God. And having a medical crisis, even if that it wasn't a major one. And he was not only dismissing you out of hand, he made you feel scared and unsafe. This is nothing okay. There's nothing okay about that. No, for real. There's really nothing okay about that. Like, what? This is stupid. And I know what she's talking about because I get those really bad periods. Can't move. Ibuprofen's not touching it. Tylenol's not touching it. Gabapentin is not touching it. You're literally over in pain. It hurts. Your stomach hurts. Your side hurts. Your head hurts. Everything hurts. And then you're throwing up because it hurts. Can't keep anything down. And then panic attacks. Panic attack on top of all that? Y'all don't... If y'all know panic attacks, y'all know. If you don't, look it up. Or I might put a definition right here. But those hurt. You're definitely not the a-hole for not forgiving him. Like I said, we would not be talking to this day. Like, I would have told my mom, I'd be like, yo, Dad left me in the middle of the city in Italy when I had my period. Clock that tea. And he would have my mother to deal with. All hell would have broke loose. Don't know how old you are now or if you're still suffering as described when you had your period, but if you are, you need to see a doctor. What you're describing is not normal and shouldn't be happening and can be symptoms of very worse issues like endometriosis. That's what they thought I had to because I went to the hospital. Literally morphine wasn't touching my pain. Went to the hospital. PCOS. Irregular cycle. Anyways, literally. Oh, she replied, she said, thank you for your comment. I'm 17 now and still having these problems. I will get it checked out in case it is something serious. Yeah, it's not normal. Even though like we think it's normal and other people think it's normal, it's not normal. And definitely getting it checked out helps. Unless you're Black in America with bad health insurance. Not the a-hole. Yeah, all of them are saying not the a-hole. Definitely not the a-hole. Your trauma is valid and you can describe how to process it. There's no excuse for why he treated you. Pretending to leave you is just as bad as leaving you because as far as you knew, you were abandoned. I can't help but wonder if your father is a part of a very something culture. Oh no, I got dyslexia. I don't got the energy to read all that. It's time for the type of guy who has no empathy for women to to get with their darn program. Points to your brother. Period. Points to her brother. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're all saying definitely not the a-hole. So I'm sorry you went through that. You're probably not even watching this. I'm sorry you went through that. Um, Debbie Dad Club? I don't even call mine a dad. I call him a sperm donor. The L sperm donor? Let's pick something else now. Some of these titles, they definitely look like they're not the a-hole. So I'm just gonna pick. I just kind of want some tea. So, like, am I the a-hole for criticizing how my parents raised my sister all because of events that took place years ago? I kind of want this tea. Oh, this is a juicy and a long one. Grab your teas. Some tea about to get spilled. Okay. Me, M, and my sister, we grew up in what was a bit of a strict environment. Me too, girl. Or boy. Or they, them. Everything. I don't know. In a strict environment. My parents weren't always the nicest when I was growing up. And whilst my little sister didn't get to experience the strict nature of my parents, I did felt. They were strict with punishments. I ended up spending a lot of time in my room and I sort of developed a quiet kid personality. Me too. As I slowly learned to behave more. My sister, on the other hand, wasn't best behaved kid. Wasn't what? Wasn't the best. Oh, it's not my reading. It's literally the thing. Wasn't best behaved kid in the world. She would have thrown tantrums and fits when she didn't get her own way. She showed these signs when she was little. Clock it, because my brother does that, and this other girl I know. So when I was 8, my mom was pregnant, and we were anticipating a boy. However, she lost the child. Wait, same. And it was devastating to the family. It was after the miscarriage I noticed shifts in my parents' behavior. They were more kind and lenient. It If we were misbehaving, it would always be just behave or calm it down. And I noticed they started to let us have a lot of stuff we wanted. The behavior from my parents was noticed by my little sister and she took advantage of it. Don't they always? There was always something she wanted, so she would cry, throw fits, etc. They would call her nicknames like Princess, which she would always refer to herself as. Okay, but my name means princess, so I have a little lenient there. And then slowly my parents started giving her a lot more attention. Interesting. When I was a teenager, my sister was constantly going out for shopping and stuff with money she would get from a side of our family, and she would constantly get food, new clothes, whilst I'm sometimes may get new clothes once a year, and she is having new clothes about every month or so. It became an issue to the point where I was uncomfortable in certain shirts and would only go out in like the 3 same clothes. Obviously, I became a target of bullying from my sister who would poke fun at my outfits, choice, etc. I always complained to my family about it and they would always say the same crap I would hear from them. Then one day she was acting like an entitled bee. She got into trouble and was taking it out on me by stealing stuff and hiding it in my room. I came into her room to grab my stuff back, and instead of going to my room, I talked to my mom. Before she could speak, I cut in and said, "Have you taken a good look at her and the way and the way you treat her?" I went on to complain about how they would treat her as a spoiled child. She had no sense of responsibility, and that they couldn't pin the events of the miscarriage and how they were raised and how they raised my sister. They are meant to be authoritative figures of the house. They shouldn't be needing their own son to tell them. Oh, so this is a guy. Crazy. So, what happened? My mom scolded me saying that she had to go through a lot after the baby died and that I shouldn't be stepping in. I fought back saying that it was almost 10 years ago. It's time to get a grip of her actions. I would have laughed. I'm sorry. It's not funny. When my dad came home, he grounded me for upsetting my mom and for bringing up the miscarriage. After that day, I kept challenging my parents, and so we clash about it now. And we still clash about it now. Okay. My take. First of all, when the parent goes through a miscarriage and there's more than one children that was before that miscarriage, it's not just the mom that goes through it. Yes, it hits the mom the heaviest, but everyone in the family is going through that miscarriage because everyone had emotions and attachment to that baby. So yes, she did go a lot through that miscarriage, but so did everyone else too. So, it kind of is unfair per se for the dad to ground him and be like, you made your mom upset and you shouldn't have brought the miscarriage up. This is why we have problems. People do not communicate and we do not talk through our feelings. Class, what did we learn? Talk through our feelings. But no, I do see, because for me, I was very much the spoiled child before my brother came into the picture, and and then it's a whole backstory, so I'm not gonna get into that. But I definitely see where he's coming from, and I've had instances like this. But I was the only child when the miscarriage happened, so it's a little different. But I do not argue the a-hole for criticizing how my parents raised my sister, all because of events that took place years ago. It's hard to say. I wouldn't say yes and I wouldn't say no. Like, they are your parents and they knew when they were having your kids, when the birds and the bees happened, that a child was going to be procreated. Like, it was going to happen. You were born. A child is born. A star is born. Sorry. So it's a little unfair to say, but I mean, you have the right to criticize people, but the parents, it's so hard. It's so cliche to say and it's so rough to say, but they only are taught what they're taught. So they can only give you what they were given, So, and people tend to imitate their parents even knowingly and unknowingly. So, yeah. But criticizing, I mean, hey, that's how you felt, and you had a right to tell them how you felt without having a pushback being pressed upon you, because she took your stuff and was acting like a total B, in your words exactly, and you went to get it back and you were met with confrontation. So I don't know. I don't think you were, but I also don't think you were. I think there was a better way to go about it. That's what I think. There was a better way to go about it. But you had every right to feel the way you felt, and don't let nobody take that from you. But there is a way to go about everything, I hope that's making sense. But all in all, I don't think so. Let's see. It says, in my opinion, you are not the a-hole. You are correcting your sister's attitude and is not acceptable. That is not acceptable, and it has been enabled by your parents who have failed you both in their responsibilities. Exactly. Like, both of y'all have been failed, not just you or not just her. Both of y'all have been failed. Maybe some will argue that it's an a-hole move to bring the miscarriage. That was a traumatic event for them. However, I would argue that you perhaps had a legitimate point for your parents to address those unsolved feelings. Yeah. Basically what I said. From those issues in the past, they may not have proceeded it in a healthy way. That's exactly what I said. Literally. Not an a-hole. Yeah, your parents absolutely went easier on your sister, and it's understandable. How do you be frustrated by the double standards? Exactly. Hypocritical moments. especially when it left you neglected and bullied in your own home. But the way you brought up the miscarriage was also going to hit a nerve. Yeah. Grief is messy. It is. Even a decade later, it's still raw for them. You're not wrong for noticing the imbalance or for calling it out, but you went for the sharpest wound in the process. Literally. Um, sorry, I just got a notification. So you're not an a-hole for wanting fairness, exactly, or speaking your truth, but the way you delivered it is what made things blow up, exactly. A better path now would be setting boundaries and focusing on how their current actions affect you without tying it back to the miscarriage. Literally. Someone said, so as far as I can tell, this happened a while ago. You're digging up ancient history. Feelings are feelings, and if you haven't necessarily processed them, they can feel like they happened today. Like, I don't know. The easiest way I can represent it is I have a cup, and say I put sand in this cup. There's tea in this cup right now. Say I put sand in this cup. Can I drink that tea? No. So some people might say, hey, just get the sand out and you can drink the tea. How am I going to filter it out? Sand is still going to be the tea. Like, this tea is never going to be the same again because there's particles of sand and stuff in it. Others might say, well, just add more tea. So if I add more tea, the sand is still in it. So the sand is your hurt. The hurt's not going to go anywhere until you process it. That's the only way I can describe it. I feel like I had to visualize it for people. Anyways, but he replied to this. He says, I am currently 18 and soon to be 19. The events of the argument took place like a couple weeks ago. And this was posted 4 hours ago. The miscarriage, as I stated, happened 10 years ago. However, my parents used that event as an excuse in their behavior and how they treated my sister. So the only bit I would consider ancient history as was my parents and I talking about what happened years ago when my mom was pregnant. How old is your sister? Let me get age. It doesn't make sense. Like, what? First of all, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. You are not the a-hole for feeling the way you felt, and you just should have went about it a different way. But how were you known you were supposed to do that? It's kind of where I'm coming from, you know? So, yeah, a lot of people are saying you're not the a-hole. You were in the right to criticize them. A miscarriage will always be hard on them, but they can't repeatedly use it as an example to let your sister misbehave like that. Literally. However, you should try to avoid bringing events in the past that will trigger emotions in your parents, as it will escalate with no resolution. Exactly. Exactly. Okay, how are we feeling? One more?